So how do you do intros actually? Do you have like a snappy like phrase?
No.
I'd like one.
You can work on it.
I can dream.
You can work on it.
We do not have anything cool like.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
It was Welcome to the Ember Run loop for a long time.
Oh yeah,
that took a while for us to do away with. Not a good move.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, I just listened to the latest 2 episodes.
Oh yeah.
Those are new.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. We're actually planning on making the RFs. Yeah, there was a huge gap. I really debated whether or not we would just number the one like we had been doing it the whole time, and just continue the nth number. So we'd be like on episode 150 now or something like that, and then just call those the lost episodes. Chase,
keep it going.
Yeah,
so
Chase overruled me. It's like, oh well, I mean, I don't know, like it looks like Apple totally messed up our feed or something.
Right.
It'd be pretty fun.
So have you been doing Ember the whole time?
Yeah. I started work at 201 Created in late January of 2017, and I've been doing Ember pretty much all the time during that period.
So you and Chase used to work together.
Yeah.
When the podcast started, and then the job change was kind of impetus.
Origin of the podcast is a tricky one, but we for a long time we had been pitching Ember to our then consultancy, like our shared consultancy. We worked at a place called HashRocket. They do Rails consultancy, or it is a Rails consultancy, and they do other things now, and they did then. And when the front end kind of like diverged, for a long time Rails was kind of like this monolithic place where you kind of did like the omakase thing, where it was like, hey, you're going to write CoffeeScript, and you're going to put them in files, and they're going to be asset pipelined to you or whatever. And that was fine for a while, and then sometime right around maybe like a year before I started at HashRocket, and it was, I don't know the years anymore. Timeline's murky. But at some point, it wasn't enough. So Backbone kind of entered in, and that was like the thing to do. So I wrote a few Backbone apps and Angular apps, kind of under duress in the Angular apps. And eventually I came into the Ember space and was like, okay, this is like so much like Rails. Like there's conventions, there's like a strong community. It was young, still is young actually. But it was a lot of the things that really drew me to Rails, so kind of went into that. And okay, so this is a long-winded explanation here, but at HashRocket, there were no directives. It was a flat hierarchy, so anyone could kind of pitch things, and you were assigned a team. A team was assigned to a project, and then you story carded it. You decided together as a team what the technology stack you wanted to use, and I wanted that.
How
technology.
big was the consultancy?
Around this time, it was like 30 or so developers, plus like there's some project managers and sales staff and etc. So probably like it's a mid-sized company.
And you'd be working on like different projects, like there would be teams of like 5 or 6 or something like that. So at any given time, there's maybe half a dozen projects being worked on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that gave you the opportunity to try new things.
Definitely. And we had a strong pairing culture. So every project, rather than have one developer, it was 2 developers at least. And then if you ramped up, you would ramp up by pair. And that means that you kind of have to convince other people that your ideas are worth their salt, I guess. So it really incentivized myself and eventually Chase once I convinced him like short circuit that. But I convinced him that Ember was kind of the way to go, along with like a small contingent of other Rocketeers that were like, hey, like this is kind of the way we want to do it. And to gain sway, so we had satellite offices at the time. There was some people in Chicago and people here, and I think there were some people in Colorado for a while, and just all over the place. You wanted to have like, hey, like let's sell this, and not only that, like let's get clients asking us for Ember expertise. And so we had bounced ideas off each other for a while, and Chase and I just finally decided, along with like 2 other people, I think. Originally, I dabbled with the idea of doing it with Robert DeLuca, who works at the front side now. and he is still doing some Ember, although he does React and other things now too.
Because he's from Florida, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Florida contingent.
Yeah, so it was actually kind of cool. He and I don't remember how we met. I think it was at an Orlando meetup that he organized.
I think my dad's actually met him at an Orlando meetup. He met Robert.
Yeah.
And now Robert lives in...
Austin. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was like the original thing, and then I think that kind of fell through mainly due to just like the distance. So he was in Orlando and I was in Jacksonville, which is North Florida.
Gotcha.
So like organizing a podcast, at least early, like once you get it going, you guys know this. Once you get it going, you can kind of be a little more flexible. But in the beginning, you want to have like mixers and you want to have some structure,
consistency.
And for our case, we actually had a lot of Chase and I had a lot of equipment, accessible equipment. So we had some microphones that we could use in a space, and that was huge. We actually had a space that most of the time was pretty quiet, which is like, you don't realize how much that and how important that is,
and how hard it can be to get it.
Yeah, totally. And we were using condenser mics at the time, so like they just pick up that super broad frequency, so they're catching everything, everything. Like okay, I'm gonna go into some like.
Go for it. We're there.
We're in podcast land for a minute,
with you
for just a minute. But yeah, you do the editing, and when you start editing, you realize how much noise humans produce. When they talk, and how often they say and how much like saliva they have in their mouth. There's a million things that go on, and then you start picking up like vibrations in like 2 units down from your place. So we had this like nice space where if we turn the air conditioner off, of course it's Florida, so it's sweltering. Then it was like pretty much dead quiet. And we were on the 7th floor. We're away from like everyone else.
You guys are like naked in a closet recording a podcast.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh God, I can't breathe. And that ended up being like a really cool thing. So I mean, I guess long story short, there was that the EmberWeekend podcast kind of came out as a way for us to try to pull Ember business into
HashRocket.
And it wasn't necessarily for HashRocket's gain so much as I wanted to work in Ember like full time. So basically, you got assigned a project, and that was your project until like the contract was over. Usually, we were doing like full development. It wasn't really staff augmentation at the time, although later we did do some of that.
You were doing like Greenfield projects, like full stack
Greenfield,
development.
or later I did a few rescues, and it's actually kind of interesting. I think maybe this is true of other consultancies, and you guys can weigh in on this, but I think that typically you want to have your Greenfield, like in a big consultancy, when you have some Greenfield and some rescue projects, you want, we call them brownfield projects. Is that a thing that people do? Okay. Wasn't sure if that was common outside of HashRocket. Well, you would assign more junior Rocketeers, and of course, like most consultancies, you have some experience at a product shop, almost always. Like I think that's pretty normal. So they're not inexperienced developers, they're just new to the consulting. You would give them the Greenfield project so they can kind of like forge their tastes and like build up some patterns, and then they can draw upon, like, I don't know. I really find that doing a rescue project or brownfield or trying to like fix things that have gone awry, or old things or upgrade paths or whatever, that is almost always harder, and you have to have like, you can't just be like, oh, this pattern works for this problem and let me implement it. Well, you can do that in a Greenfield because you're like, well, I think this will work. This kind of fits.
And there's like 3 files.
Yeah, and you're building it, and you're like, okay, well, it builds. And then if you run into a problem or a corner, you paint yourself in a corner, you can usually be like, oh, well, I can kind of backtrack, or I learned a little bit. Let's pivot back to a different pattern, or let me ask some senior people at the consultancy. When you ran into this, what do you do? And you can get some guidance and kind of go in the right way. But like with rescue projects, you're almost always just digging into like, I don't understand. So like programmers, I don't think, at least by and large, don't make bad decisions intentionally. So like most of what you're doing is like spelunking through like Git logs, and you're like, why did they do this? Which is why like a good commit message, like as soon as I see in GitHub, at least, I think there's a little ... Like when I see that, I'm like, thank you. Like, if I see that, I don't care if you just said, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm future traveler, welcome to my pain. Like if you do that, that's fine. But like usually when I see that ... it means that they gave me a nice little synopsis, and then they went into the Git commit, and they're like, "Hey, like right now, this seems. You're probably thinking this seems silly, but
here's the reasons
here's the
why.
reasons why,
Yeah.
and like we ran into this problem and stuff like that.
It's so true. Like when you're looking at old code, especially old code written by someone else, all you have is code, and usually you don't even have that person anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much context that's just completely missing. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's also just a perspective that you have in that environment, but like for many years I was building Greenfield internal apps at TED or at my last company. I was building our own side projects. I was working on my own open source. And in all those contexts, you're not working with legacy code. I mean, a lot of times, like a lot of throwaway projects, and you just get comfortable with how you use your style of programming, and you're not thinking as much about the Git commit messages or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to whoever's maintaining all my code. But I think it is good. It's like it's such a tough problem. And also just like apps that are smaller versus like bigger scale apps are just completely different. So like,
I think that's honestly, that's for me, like I think I've seen most of the time when I see stuff that's really kind of bad, and I've written like I need to backtrack here and kind of like put on the humble hat for a second and just tell everybody I've definitely written some legacy code that I'm very much not. I'm not the person who knows all the answers. It's just like some pain that I've experienced. But a lot of times it's applying those patterns for like large company, like microservices were the big thing in Rails, for instance.
Right.
And like that is, I've kind of come around and don't really think that's the way to go. Like personally, that's obviously my own experiences, but like, I don't know, like you're pigeonholing these patterns that work for big companies where you have like multiple teams working kind of independently or autonomously. And then you're putting that into like your thing where you have like 5 people running it, and you're going to hand it off, and theoretically you're going to hand it off to like a maintenance engineer. Like a lot of times, you know, these companies they needed a thing to sell a product that was already doing well, or to market things that they already do well. So they don't need more features. They need to be able to like make sure the security releases are done and things like that. Like maintaining like 6 microservices and making sure that they all follow Semver and making sure that they're all like hosted in the right way, and like if NPM goes down, are you vendoring, are you shrink wrapping, are you whatever?
An exploit. I mean, that's the worst when you have a lot of services and there's an exploit and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is even true in open source. We were just talking about this because, you know, Ember got split into all these packages, and now it's a lot of infrastructure work to get all the packages displayed on the same site because they're all pulling from different repos that are updated independently and versioned independently. So it's like a ton of complexity there.
Well, I really think they wanted to bring that all back with the lockstep versioning. That was like the big chant 2 EmberConfs ago. It was like, hey, we're going to lockstep all of our major core packages together.
And now that's causing issues of its own.
Yeah, I still think it's better than just like having have you ever looked at those, I think it was Liquid Fire, like before the lockstep versioning?
Yeah.
You had like a table of support structures, like, well, I'm here on this one, but I'm here on this one. That's the one
we were actually just talking with Rob about this, and you know, there's a good case to be made for some metadata in the Ember add-ons part of package.json that says what versions I work with. And so that way you run Ember serve and you just run a quick check, and it's like you just ran Ember CLI update and your project is on 3.1 now, but you're using Ember or Liquid Fire 2.7 and it's like not the right one. Yeah,
like just give me some information, some warning that says, hey, there needs to be some sort of resolution here.
Yeah.
I feel like the resolution thing is tricky. Like, I don't know how, honestly, like trying to track down, for instance, recently I worked on, maybe in like March, I was working on FastBoot Rehydration. And like, in order to get the stuff that was already written in Glimmer VM into Ember proper, like it was written like months before, like 3 or 4 packages, maybe 5 packages needed to be touched and updated. And then you needed to like tell like the right people when they could release. So there was like a whole orchestration.
Yeah,
orchestration is really difficult.
How did you develop, like locally, how did you develop? Was it lots of like NPM linking?
Yeah, almost all, everything was linked, and then like I just did the changes I wanted to see, and then I like dealt with the version stuff like at the very end, and was just like, I don't know how to get this in the right spot, but like got everything to master as much as I could, and then like Ember CLI needed like to monkey patch the Ember Visit API, I think, but you have to reopen the application instance, I think, and that had to happen in a vendor file, and that was to basically say, hey, like use the different element builder.
Yeah.
and that was cool, but like, yeah, it was tricky, and then you also had to figure out like what versions that would work with too. So I think we just kind of like locked it. I had Robert's help. I mean, the end result is a lot of times when you're missing some of those things, you have to call to somebody who's
doing that every day and understands how it all works.
And I really think that's what I don't know. So the structure, the organization of the projects have changed now. So I'm not sure if that's core now or if it's Ember.js core, but like I think maybe it's the steering committee or something, like a steering project or team. But like there is going to be, if there isn't already, a role for infrastructure, I think, because you need that. You need somebody who knows all of the different pieces and like, I want to get this merged in. How do I do that?
Right.
You know, and I think that
I mean,
needs
even
to
making
be
a change on the website, it's not trivial. It's not as you don't just find the homepage.hps and change some copy.
I have a PR to change how the testing setup stuff works, and it requires a change to. It's like a change to Ember CLI and then a change to the blueprint that's an Ember source, and I'm not sure like how to like I can hack it and get it work at my computer,
right?
But I'm not sure like how do I make this as easy as possible for the person that needs to click the merge button,
right?
So that's really cool that like someone who's like
thinking about that. Yeah,
I think it would be really good to see another team kind of for that infrastructure
own that part of it basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there are already people who are qualified. Robert, obviously.
Yes.
Tobias Binek.
Right.
He's actually when you mentioned the blueprint thing, I'm thinking of Mocha. My current client project runs on Mocha, and I updated the application to use I wrote a code mod to update the application to use for integration tests the new API. Like in Mocha, it's the 0.14 API, and it's awesome, super awesome. Totally recommend checking that out. But
the API.
Yeah, the API. The API is great.
For Mocha.
For Mocha, well,
using the new testing stuff.
So the API for Mocha and the API for QUnit are basically the same now, and I think that's a really strong, compelling point. Like if my entire
nested
suite was there,
and everything.
Yeah, well, nested describes, and then like setup hooks, setup application, everything's being imported from the owner of the responsibility. So like there's test harness code that's imported from @Ember test helpers, and then there's assertion code that's imported from Mocha, and like nary the twain shall meet. You know, like these are different things, and it's just like QUnit. And it's actually kind of cool because if I were to convert my entire suite from the old testing API to the new testing API, I could like just run a very simple code mod to like change import statements and just be running QUnit. It's like the same. It's almost the exact same API.
Nice.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
And personally, the only reason I would do that is because I don't like the Mocha test runner. So like I've probably been on record already on my podcast about that, but the Mocha test runner is lacking in my opinion.
I
So
see.
like no, you can't disable try catch like you can in QUnit. So like if you want to test like some error states and stuff, it's kind of annoying.
Gotcha.
I feel like I'm like going in circles.
Well, no, you talked about a lot of cool stuff that I have some questions about. So you've been doing some client work at 201, but you've also, sounds like you've been doing some open source stuff.
Yeah, almost all the open source actually was for my current client.
Oh, okay, cool. So
yeah.
talk about the rehydration stuff. It sounds really interesting.
Okay, yeah. So the rehydration stuff was actually from a while ago, and I think it's still listed or considered experimental. Matter of fact, you have to enable a flag that's an all screaming case that's called like experimental render serialized mode equals true or something like that. And
Dangerously rehydrate your
yeah,
app.
yeah. It's actually not particularly dangerous. It's just that to pass it without an environment variable would have been like touching more packages. So that's actually was the main thing. So I was like, I'll just make it experimental and then I can just kind of do what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a long time ago, not quite a year ago, maybe like 8-9 months ago, there's a really detailed commit from Yehuda on the Glimmer VM when they implemented a rehydration. And for those of you who don't know about rehydration, I think you guys are probably familiar with it, but there's like server-side rendering, and when you render it on the server side, it goes from the server as a string to the browser, and then the browser puts it in the DOM. And Glimmer does that. But you throw away all of the pre-existing DOM that was done. and then you. This is not rehydration. Sorry, this is the way it was done pre-rehydration. You would send HTML that would paint an image.
So let's set the stage. So we're talking about Glimmer right now, and we're talking about Glimmer running on the server, which is not FastBoot at all.
No, this would be FastBoot.
It's FastBoot. Yeah, I'm kind of like
you're talking about the Glimmer VM that made its
so
way into Ember.
Yeah, the Glimmer VM is the thing that actually does the building of the DOM, and that's
I see. So that's where rehydration needs to be implemented, even if it's in like a standalone Glimmer app.
But we're still
you're
talking
not
about
doing it.
FastBoot. Yeah,
Right.
It's definitely in FastBoot land. So I guess I can use FastBoot as the thing because that definitely
that's kind of my
more
mental
clear.
model. Yeah.
Definitely more clear. And all of the stuff for rehydration was implemented in FastBoot and EmberCLI FastBoot.
Gotcha.
And basically, you send DOM down, and the browser will render it right away. And basically, you put the JS require statements, the script tags, the JavaScript script tags for your application
that loads your Ember app.
below the content for body in your index HTML. And then the index HTML, in that content for body, FastBoot dumps a big blob of HTML, and your browser renders it. And it's like, hey, like I have a picture to paint. Like I printed your avatar component. It's right here.
Right.
So it does that, and then your JavaScript loads below that, and then Ember fires off its initializers, and its first initializer that it does is it says, hey, is there FastBoot content on the page? If there is, I need it to be gone because I'm going to build brand new DOM with Glimmer. So Glimmer has the opcodes to build it. So what this means in practice is that you can get like an initial state that's really good and fast, and theoretically links will work because it'll do a full round trip back and forth. So if your JavaScript takes a really long time to load, or if you're on a really bad internet connection or something like that, you can see everything, and you can click links, and you have limited functionality. If it's like a copy page, like a marketing site, you can see it. Meta tags work like right out of the box. So like basically anything that doesn't render JavaScript will just see the page as it exists before the JavaScript renders. It's fine. But previously, before rehydration, when Ember tried to build a DOM again, it just knew that there wasn't enough information for us to accurately represent the DOM as it exists, as the way that the browser rendered it, and hook it up to all of the JavaScript things that need to be hooked up to it.
So like instead of being able to attach the event handler to the DOM that's already there, because if the browser is reading the server rendered HTML, it's creating a DOM. It's
and
parsing
it knows about a bunch of
it's
stuff.
in memory. You could open up the dev tools and see it all right there, and
Yep.
you could just theoretically start attaching event handlers. But the problem is Ember and Glimmer need to have a reference to the right components and everything to add the event handlers. And there's no easy way for it to do diffing or anything
so
like that.
the way I think about it is like the DOM is just not sufficiently articulate to describe what needs to happen in Ember land. So if Ember builds the thing, it's like, oh, I know what that is. I know where that
can like
Ember
give it an
is.
identity and like hold on to it in some reference.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like if you just give me a DOM, I can't.
Yeah. It's not enough information.
Right.
For Ember to know exactly what to do and hook things up the way that you'd expect it to be hooked up. So what rehydration does is it's two-part. So in the server-side land, it adds a bunch of extra information to make that DOM more articulate about what it's supposed to do. And then so that's the server-side part. That's the serialized part. So there's a serialized element builder, and it says, hey, when I get to a div and I'm opening a div, I need to tell Glimmer more stuff about this div because I need comment nodes. It does it in comment nodes. I need to add comment nodes, kind of like metamorph tags if you put your Wayback Hat on. And it does like that. It does that, which gives you more information. And then you ship that to the browser and it renders because all those are comment nodes. So it just does what FastBoot did before, but now it has a whole bunch of extra information that the builder can use.
So that metadata that you need to rehydrate, that's like not like a separate JSON payload or anything. That's like in the DOM.
Yeah, it's in the DOM.
HTML.
It's in the DOM because as
comment
Glimmer is going to parse the tree. And it goes through each element, and it's going to say, okay, well, am I a Glimmer serialized node? And if I am, then what do I need to do? I need to do things about it. It's like more information.
Cool. Can you walk me through, like, say I have a link, and when I click that link...
So no, way above my pay grade. This is Yehuda's work. There's a big, really detailed Git commit with the dots. It has some ellipses, which is great. Thank God. That describes better than what I'm doing right now, what the rehydration builder does. And it describes like how the pointer will actually travel across when it traverses. And that's going to give you a little bit more information, but it's a little bit past what I needed to know. I needed to know like the general build of it. So just like what are the potential wins? And actually, we should talk about that.
Because right now, EmberMap is EmberMap.com is like the old style of FastBoot. So I should say like
the current style, yeah,
where we wipe away the page.
Yeah.
So we
you get a little potentially white screen flicker.
Yeah, it's not. I can't notice it unless I go into DevTools and
just run Lighthouse. You'll see it there probably, or like just throttle your JavaScript CPU down to like nothing.
That's what we need to do, because Lighthouse actually, once we started FastBoot serving the homepage, the Lighthouse score was like really good.
Our desktop Lighthouse score is our mobile Lighthouse score is a little low, but our desktop
So going back to like the big picture,
the motivation.
You have this serialized payload that goes through. FastBoot renders it, and then in the experimental mode, we monkey patch the application instance. Like basically, we would just add a flag to visit, which we did add for the FastBoot side. So visit can accept basically like what element builder should you use. So in FastBoot, FastBoot actually calls .visit. That's the actual official API of FastBoot. But when you boot an Ember app, it is not visit. It's called like boot _boot. It's like private thing. They do custom things in the browser land. So we had to monkey patch that and then pass the option to kind of catch up to where you could say, okay, in FastBoot, when you call visit, I'm going to pass the thing that says, your element builder needs to be the serialized version. And then go ahead.
What is an element builder? Can you just?
So it's the part in Glimmer that like visits an element and says, okay, what are the things that Glimmer needs to do when I encounter this element? It builds. It's literally building the element. There's like a thing for text nodes and comment nodes. Like, what do I do when I encounter a node that I need to build based off of opcodes or whatever that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's just like
it's the thing that's going to result in a thing that says like open div, insert text content, close div. That.
I think this is actually like past that part.
Okay.
This is when it's actually building the nodes up. Like it's literally trying to create the DOM that we're going to use. I think it's literally more. It's like it's further down the line as far as my understanding is concerned. I could be wrong. So
I see.
I don't know if you guys have like follow up or anything like that, but like just huge caveat. I am not the expert on FastBoot. I am like just a person who
sounds like you're the expert on FastBoot.
I just pulled some stuff over from Glimmer. Yehuda and
sounds like you've been working on FastBoot for like a year.
Yeah, and Godfrey Chan have been doing that.
My understanding is that there's like a build program and an update program that Glimmer gives you, and so the build program makes sense that that's where this part would be, because typically you would have a set of instructions that would be building something from nothing.
That's a
you
big
need to
picture.
build something from something.
Yeah. So this is basically trying to, in my understanding, is it's trying to get to the point where there's the it's the append VM and the update VM.
Yeah, right.
So the append VM is really the new VM. I don't know why. I feel like that's confusing to me.
Well, it's appending to an empty DOM.
You're right. So in the case of rehydration, you're not appending to an empty DOM. You're appending to a DOM with stuff in it, and you're trying to basically like short circuit some of the work because the work's already been done.
You really may be appending.
You're trying to get to the update VM without going through the append thing. So it's complicated, but it goes into the DOM. So FastBoot rendered the thing, but now it has these markers, and then the boot gets overridden to use the rehydration element builder, which once again there's that big long commit that describes it better, and then that will look at those comment markings and get you to a state without having to destroy the DOM. So it basically is reattaching to the DOM.
So there is a period where what they call the uncanny valley.
This is exactly what I want to talk about.
And there still is that period. So in the original version without rehydration, you basically are waiting the entire time it takes for Ember with Glimmer under the hood to basically set inner HTML. So it's going to blow away whatever's there and set it. And there's a time where you're seeing what was FastBoot rendered, but it's not fully interactive. Like you said, links will work, but a lot of stuff won't.
And I think that's the thing. There are trade-offs, and that's the thing that every other server-side rendering solution out there that I've seen has not made they've not explained to me what their solution is for this uncanny valley. So like, what do you do with user input when it's rebuilding?
Right.
Like,
because that's not
do you throw
state.
it away?
That's it's like DOM state.
Yeah, it's DOM state. Do you trap all the click handlers and let them all happen and cascade at the very end?
Right.
That sounds like a bad experience.
That's what we used to do at TED.
Yeah.
We would rehydrate the server rendered stuff with Backbone would basically reattach itself and we capture click handlers.
Yeah, and well, yeah, but that feels weird too.
We had to do all that ourselves.
Yeah,
too.
but that just feels weird.
It's a maintenance nightmare.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a
We had to
home.
do it all
Yeah,
ourselves.
all of the stuff that I've talked about so far is turnkey. Like,
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole thing about FastBoot. It's just like it's on, you know. So yeah, the uncanny valley thing I think is really interesting to talk about because, like, the way the rehydration builder works is the DOM is printed and never gets torn down. But I believe, like, if you click a link, it will just go back to the server.
Right.
Because
you get a
Ember's
full
not
page
intercepting.
refresh.
There's no
You
JavaScript.
are- Yeah, the browser
So, like,
doing
links
was doing.
and content will kind of not be in the uncanny valley state. And I think that's the kind of middle ground that you want.
I think you want an API that developers can use because the UX for different UI elements would be different. So maybe on a marketing page, it doesn't matter if you hit a full page refresh. But if you are filling out a form and
Well, we already kind of have that. So we have HTML. We have like actual HTML. So like if you are in FastBoot land, you can print an HTML form and just like say, hey, like
yeah. But what happens if the user starts typing in an input?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there's tricks. There's tricks. You have to basically like take it over. The developer would have to write it. But
Right.
what I'm getting at is
I think
say you turn JavaScript off.
Yeah.
And you just have like, you're like, hey, like I'm gonna print an HTML form, and then when Ember comes in, I'm no longer in FastBoot land. I'm gonna do the normal form component or something. But before that, you could do a regular form, and like if they submitted the form before Ember rehydrated, it would just go back to the server.
Yeah.
And if you just allowed that to be true, then you could probably control it a little bit more fine grained with just regular old HTML.
Yeah.
I think the trick is there is you end up, let's say like your form, when you submit it, you fire an action. And then
Yeah.
so you end up like duplicating that action in server land.
Well, no, but I really think that you want to stick with turnkey and like try your best to just to not think about it very much. But if you want fine grained control, I think you can actually like you can basically say like, hey,
it'd be
like,
nice if there was an API.
To capture events and gave you a way to like.
Well, that would be cool. I'm even thinking like if I'm writing a template and this is something that I just don't want to be interactive, or I want to style the interactive state while rehydration is occurring. Then I would want to say if like Ember hasn't booted yet, or if before interactive, just disable the input and even add a little message to it if you hover over it. You could do all that with HTML and CSS with no JavaScript.
Yeah.
And you can make it so like that way it's just it's just dimmed and
FastBoot could serve it.
Exactly.
So you can already do that with FastBoot ships with a service that in FastBoot land, when it does the FastBoot visit, you can say, am I in FastBoot in an HBS template? And then you could just say, hey, when I'm in FastBoot, I'm going to serve a DOM that has a totally gray box where the form might be.
Yeah, maybe that's all you would need if in FastBoot. Yeah.
But I will say you're onto something with handling user interactions during that period. You still want to handle.
Yeah, you want to make the experience. I mean, that's a known state of your application. It's a known state. If you're on a slow phone, it could be a couple seconds, and you don't want someone frustrated to be there. So you could just have a little loading. You could have a skeleton screen, whatever it is.
Skeleton screens are really good, but like trapping UI elements or not click handlers. Events. Thank you. Oh man. Whew.
Get you some more coffee.
It's hot out there. I need more
Julio.
coffee. Yeah. Anyways, if you're handling events, I do think that it would be kind of neat to be like, hey, like when there's scroll events or something like that, I want to do something, but maybe keep track of it so Ember can do something reactionary, like
to
later
me, that's
to make
harder
sure you catch up.
Than if you had a problem to just say, make it interactive. Make it non-interactive for an intermediate period.
You don't
like imagine you had like scroll capturing and all this stuff.
But as long as the UI doesn't change,
right?
So if you are making a button disabled and that causes a button to look different, like it grays it out,
right?
Then you could get like a flash of disabled.
Well, you would have to do it in a nice way.
Yes.
Yeah, you
I mean,
can, you can
that would
do
be like a designer who would say, it's something you tell a designer. Like, it's like what happens when your app goes offline. You have to design for that. What happens when there's this intermediate state?
So I'm gonna throw a wet blanket on this conversation. Is we have this problem in EmberMap, and when I try to recreate this problem, I can't.
Because it's fast.
It's fast.
Yeah.
Like I try to click.
That's the other thing.
I'm on a brand new Mac.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But,
Yeah.
Like when I try to get like the action not to fire, it's like
Too fast.
I'm like, wait, did FastBoot really? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You can throttle in the dev tools
I can
pretty
get it
well.
done.
The CPU.
Okay. Yeah,
That
if
would
you
be the way
throttle the
to do it.
CPU and the network connectivity,
Right.
you're gonna see something.
But my users aren't. Doing
Yeah,
that, so.
yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
maybe it'd be good to get a slower device just to see too. But that's cool.
Yeah.
So that was some of the work you've been doing. And when is that? What's the state of that right now?
So the version.
I mean, is your work with that done? Is your work with that done? Like the stuff you were doing?
Yeah,
The part you bit off?
So there, I mean, you can use it like today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was back in March, and I think 3.2 was head or master or canary at the time, and now 3.3 I think is canary or not canary stable. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
yes.
when 3.2 landed, you could use it with just
the
updating
things that
versions of
Glimmer
things.
VM needed to do were in there.
Oh, no way. So with just turning on the experimental environment variable,
Yes.
but no.
No code changes?
That's it. So,
Oh, wow.
so the FastBoot sets so if you set that environment variable, FastBoot will set the server side rendering engine to the serialized element builder, and that will put those comment notes in there. And then there is a thing that actually was really annoying to get in Glimmer because of versioning that we were just talking about, where it looks for a magic string, a serialized string that's basically like %-b : something.
So never use that string.
Don't use that. But there's an actual thing that Glimmer VM exports. That was another PR that had to wait, and that actually pushed the release of it by a whole thing. And you use that, and basically you set the environment variable. The FastBoot will send that to the browser. And then the vendor thing where you reopen the application instance, it will detect that, and it says, hey, if it's present, I need to use the rehydration builder.
Cool.
So all you have to do is set that and make sure you have the right versions.
I see. So it's just about opting in on both the generation and the builder
Yep.
side, but those are
Yeah.
already in. Those code paths are in each of the core libraries.
Yeah. I think
Cool.
FastBoot, the underlying FastBoot, is still in a beta branch. But EmberCLI FastBoot. It's EmberCLI FastBoot's in the beta version. And that one, if you set that to the beta version, the FastBoot library is good, I think. One or the other. One of them is still in beta, and it's because it's utilized in 2 locations, and one of them is ready and one of them is not.
I see.
So I think it's like FastBoot App Server or their middleware. I'm not sure. One of the libraries is not ready yet, or hasn't been pushed. I don't use it, so it hasn't been a thing that I've pushed on. And as far as I know, there's only I only know one company that's using the rehydration right now, and it's not mine actually. So hopefully soon.
Get on it, Ryan.
Yeah, totally. I really think it should be turnkey.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what it would take for me to do it. Is
Yeah, and
I
think
Yeah.
the cool things would be really cool to do like some instrumentation on like how much time it saves and how many elements are being rebuilt. That was the thing that Chris Selden, when we were talking about this back in the day, like a few months ago. It feels like back in the day. Anyways, when we were talking about it, he was like, yeah, it would be really cool if we could just, you can open the Glimmer VM and add some instrumentation, like basic instrumentation. Just say, hey, if I visit this node and I'm in rehydration mode and I don't throw it away and I reuse it, just increment a counter. Tell me how many nodes we rehydrated. And I think that's the next step to kind of prove that it will have the mass appeal and say like, hey, we're actually saving some time. There were 2 sites. So the EmberConf website
schedule.
was rehydration. But that was like such a basic, like it was a very
Right.
simple app. But that was something that 201 did.
For EmberConf.
Yeah, for EmberConf.
Yep.
It also had WASM. It was really
WASM.
WASM
it was
stuff
most
and-
over-engineered.
totally over-engineered. That was
It's
totally
awesome,
fun.
though.
That was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Can you take me through what is monkey patching, like application instance visit? What library does that?
EmberCLI, FastBoot. It has a vendor file. You can go look at it, and all it does is literally say if you detect this comment, this magic comment node, then just Ember reopen application, whatever.
We are also reopening application instance and monkey patching visit. So is this going to be a problem with our?
No, I don't think so.
Stack because we call super.
I think if you call super, it should just work.
Okay.
I don't really know though. This is a good question.
We do call supers.
I'm not sure. I suspect it would be fine. The thing we're adding is just a single param. It's literally like just do that. Just flip the switch on. Glimmer VM does the work, and just flip the switch on. That's all. Honestly, that's kind of like a testament to kind of what you were saying earlier, where like there is some complexity now with all these like split libraries.
Yeah.
So like there is like this experimental Glimmer thing where we get all this new cool stuff, and it's a great testing ground for things like rehydration. But pulling it back in, it requires like a lot of
orchestration,
a lot of deep understanding of like. Well, so like if it was just a visit, if the initialization of Ember apps in the browser followed the visit API, which I think it should, but it doesn't for, I'm assuming, legacy reasons. Like it needs to be compatible back to whatever, If it just called visit, then this would have been like pretty simple. It would be the same in FastBoot and whatever, and you would just change what element builder you want to use.
Right.
So I think ideally the long-term goal is to make that true, to where web, like Ember apps in the browser would call visit to boot themselves. And when that happens, then a lot of the monkey patching goes away and stuff like that. And I don't think that was definitely incidental. I don't think anyone wants that. Like anytime you monkey patch, you just feel like I don't know what I'm doing here. This isn't good. But
interesting.
You get the nod from like 2 or 3 people, and you know the people. You ask those people, and they give you the nod, and you're like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm not gonna think about it too hard. Just it's okay. Someone knows it somewhere. So
cool.
Yeah.
What have you been working on more recently since FastBoot? So you've been doing some client work.
Yeah. So I think we mentioned briefly that I used a Codemod to migrate the Mocha test suite only for integration tests. Application tests, at least in my application, it's a 5-year-old application, maybe 6, and it actually originally spawned as many Ember applications that were kind of like pushed into one main repo. So the acceptance test story is a little bit too complicated. There's too much stuff for me to write a code mod yet. I'm gonna have to write like 6 different code mods. And I'm doing a talk tonight on code mods, so like it's kind of on my mind also.
Awesome.
But I've been working on that. So migrating from the Mocha one to like the old Mocha API, which isn't actually old. It's funny. So if you go to Ember Mocha Codemods, which is where I did the bulk of the work here.
That's the name of the repo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are 3 files in it. There is the first one that's like, index or something. I don't know what it is. And then there's like new testing API transform. And that's not the new testing API transform. That's the old testing API transform. So I named my transform in that repo like 14 transform or something, because it's like literally like this is the new API as of 0.14 or whatever.
You didn't want to call it like new.
No, yeah, new.
Underscore me too.
Yeah, so that's like okay. So I know naming's hard, but like just don't name things new. Like nothing's new for forever. It's new for a very brief period of time. Like. So yeah, that's a complicated thing, but yeah, we were working on that for a while. I had a lot of help from Robert and Tobias working on that code mod, and Simon Hijvad. I know his like handle. I don't know if it's pronounceable, but yeah, everyone has been really helpful
nice.
as you come to expect in the Ember community.
Code mods are super cool.
Yeah.
I think on your podcast you're talking about like ASCExplorer.net, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's super
amazing.
cool. I think that's a Facebook product too, and like
really?
It has like crazy good JSX support, and you can transform like CSS. Like there are.
And it has HBS support.
Yeah, it has HBS support. Yeah, Tobias added that actually.
That's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
But
AST to AST transformations are like. It's like a superpower. Like you never think about it, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. So you'd be like, oh, I want to do a find and replace, la da 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 da, And then
Right.
you're like, well, how do I do X and Y?
Right.
How do I change here and there? And it's like, oh, yeah, I literally can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't have enough information
Yeah.
with regexes. I
Yeah.
don't have enough information without like a human looking at it.
Yeah.
But like with an AST, you're like, oh man,
You
I
can go to
have
town.
so much information.
So how do you get practice? I mean, I've been thinking about this too a little bit because I'm not as interested in code mods as I am in like build time transformations and also build time warnings. But
it's really like the
it's
same
thing, right?
Yeah.
You're even using like the way you would write like an ESLint plugin is
It's the same thing.
through ASTs. So, we have one in one of our add-ons that's like if you want to enforce async false Ember data relationships, we can just add that and you can just specify that. And so that was interesting learning about that.
There was an interesting thing on the one with the last RFC roundup on EmberWeekend where Robert was talking about the angle bracket invocation.
Yeah.
And there was a transformation that happened when you passed in like an @ sign, I think is what it was, that converted like this dot
adders dot
whatever to whatever.
Yeah.
So he wrote a transform in a runtime transform here.
Yeah.
And then like rather than like reorchestrate the system, he wrote another transform that transformed it to this dot add.
Yes.
So like he had like there's like stacking runtime transforms. Like it gets really wild. Like you can do a lot of cool stuff.
It is cool.
And it doesn't cost you anything in build time.
Yeah.
Because so those aren't runtime transforms. Those are build time.
Build time.
But the build time transforms don't cost you anything.
Eventually, there is a question where you
Stop writing JavaScript.
no, I mean, right. Like you don't. If you're a library author and you're like, what should the API be? You could make it a build time thing, or you could just make it like writing AST transforms is cool. Using like classes and invoking methods is much easier. So if that makes any sense. So the problem I'm thinking of is like with our like style components, the way we do like presenter components in Ember, and we have like a style mixin that lets you add styles to it, and it's basically like a constrained version of class. So like class, CSS classes, you can add background blue, you can add whatever you want to those. There's no restriction. We have like a constrained version of that style equals on components. And if you have like a blue version of your button and a green version, you can't do blue and green at the same time because there's no such thing as like a blue-green button, right? So I want to add that check. And so I want that to be like a build time check because right now it's a runtime check. And if you run the program and you add a style like large and you don't realize there was already like a small in it, or like you have some conditional logic and then you get your program to a bad state and you're like trying to render a large small panel, I want you to have feedback about that. So the question is like, one thing I want, once I have some time, what I'm really interested in doing next in this kind of AST realm is like figuring out how to, first of all, I would want to like scan the templates and find out where you're invoking these components. So first I need to find out what those components are. So let's say we're just for sake of argument using the mixin, like this thing called styled mixin. How would I find all the names of the components that are using this mixin called styled?
Okay.
And then go over the templates and see where I'm invoking a component named like UI panel.
I may not be understanding the question or the problem space fully, but I'm not sure you have that information with even a transform, do you?
Well, I guess the transform, at the end of the day, like the idea with a transform is if a human can look at this code and see something.
Well, yeah,
then
if you can look at the file though.
Yeah.
So like if you have to look at another file to figure out what's happening here.
But let's say I look at the file and it's like import styled from UI component
can you just
/
simplify it and say like what modules import the styled mixin?
Right. That's what I would want to do, right? But this is where I'm thinking like, this is where it's an interesting thinking about this, and it's like, if you were designing an API in like Ruby or something, you'd have an instance of an object and you would like look at what it's, if it has a method defined on it or if it includes something. Like there is some overlap between APIs that work well for AST transforms and or if you would just do an API and use it when like you're running the program. So anyway, so back to this.
So like
question.
you want like meta information
exactly
to provide as you go through the AST.
Exactly. So like what the question really is, like the practical question is, what APIs are easiest for AST transforms to kind of identify? So if I wanted to mark a component as like a style component or a UI component, so that later my AST transform could easily find that. I think I asked this question on Discuss, and Ed Faulkner was like, a decorator might work here.
Yeah.
But like just in general, it's just this thing where if you're a JavaScript programmer, you could come up with something like that. Like you could come up with something and you could just check if it has a property on it.
Yeah, like use it side by side.
Yeah, exactly. But like with this AST stuff, it's not really JavaScript.
Yeah, no, it's not.
You know what I'm saying? Like
it's like more static analysis kind of stuff. Like
yeah,
you're in a different little bit of a realm. You don't really have the same information that you have in the JavaScript space.
Right. But it'd be nice if there were like some conventions and standards.
Yeah,
around,
provide meta information like a comment block or something like that.
I want to do the equivalent in OOP, in my running program where there's a property on an object and I can like filter by that property. How would I do that if I was doing an AST transform?
Yeah, I'm not sure. If you stump me, I don't know. I'm not sure.
But Miguel.
It seems like really interesting.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like there's like a lot of potential for like some really cool stuff.
Well, our goal is like the whole idea with the UI components that we use is to provide that more restrictive interface to class, so that you can just nudge programmers into how to use your buttons and to never render a blue-green button. And you get those warnings at compile time instead of runtime, so you just know you're doing something wrong here.
Is that a class property on the thing? So you're saying like color equals foo inside of the class?
So we have like UI button, let's call it, and then we have a single style attribute. So first we started with like UI button, and then like color equals blue, size equals large, but that's kind of like a lot of naming that you have to do, and it's just annoying. We like style now, just style equals, and then just a space separated string of values of styles. Okay. And you define those styles on the button. So it resembles class, it feels more familiar.
Looks like, that sounds like a class.
This string also represents how you talk to people at your company about that button. Like that's a big branded button.
Right, exactly.
It's a small marginless button.
Exactly. Right. And so those styles map to properties within the component that the programmer has defined. So a large button means 3 horizontal padding and 2 vertical padding and a border or something like that, right? So you can use like just normal CSS and HTML when you're actually implementing those styles, but the caller is just passing styles in. And then we have these runtime checks again that say, blue and green are both defined styles within a single group, and you can only have one thing from a group at a time.
Right.
And so the goal again would be first to give the programmer feedback at compile time about the fact that they're doing something wrong with your UI library, and second, to turn a UI button style equals large blue into just HTML, which is what we've called build time components before, which Miguel is already doing in Font Awesome. And then you're not even shipping an Ember component, you're just shipping HTML and CSS, but you have the nice interface of a UI button. So like you don't have to see all those classes, you don't have to use HTML and CSS, like you get to use this nice higher level abstraction. So that's my interest with the AST stuff. Yeah. And the core question here is like, how can I come up with an API that marks component files, or just more generally like classes in Ember or ES classes, in such a way that if I'm going through and writing an AST transform, I'll be able to easily identify them.
So hold on. I'm gonna pause because I feel like this is gonna be an edit point because I'm not sure here. Could you do this with TypeScript?
I don't know TypeScript.
Well, TypeScript would be annotations, so you could gain more information about like what are the optional arguments, like what could this argument be, and you could say these are the things that it could be. Would that help? I actually don't know. I don't know the answer.
Can you define types that are like? Can you define like any
like
type
an
you
arbitrary
want?
type?
Yeah, like
you can define an interface. I don't know if you can define. I don't know if you can do like
the
strict.
the type is pretty complex.
Not only can it be a type of string, but it has to be a string that is foo and bar.
Exactly. Space separated. All these things exist as keys in this object. There's only one from a group. I don't know.
I don't know if that's a TypeScripty thing, but I was just thinking like you want to annotate it. So like if you could find some way to, you could probably do like I mean, you could certainly do type information, but I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I think it could help. I think it could help.
Could you look at invocations of like .extend and see if there's ever, because it's like component .extend and the first parameter is like the mixin, the style mixin.
Right.
So could you look for invocations of extend that have like an argument called style?
Yes,
so
you could do that.
You'd have to do that, and
But
then
that's
you have
not
to go
super
and correlate
sophisticated.
it.
Like that's the thing. It feels brittle, right? What
You
if you put
feel like
another?
you're
Right,
regexing
like
it.
import
Yes.
style.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Pretty, but
And this is where, like-
wait, hold it. But JavaScript's a dynamic language. Whatever you come up with, I can come up with a way to get around.
No, but come on. There's a difference between that and saying if my mixin adds a property called underscore ember CLI UI components.
Right. But that's too much burden on the program.
No, but have you ever written a transform? Can you like actually parse and run JavaScript as part of your transform?
No,
You can't.
I don't think so.
So like that would be cool.
I have
If
not
you could
been
get
able to do that.
First of all, you filter all the components, and then you iterate through them in the build time transform, and then in the step that's like maybe transform, you have the source code, but then you load up the component, you instantiate it, and then you get to inspect it.
You
like
no,
a
you could
JavaScript.
totally do that.
You can do
so
that.
you could do that, but no, I mean it doesn't exist now. I'm saying like that is possible,
'Cause
but
then
like that
all
would be a
would-
lot of extra work. Like
But
there's
wait,
a lot of
that-
like moving parts there because basically you're saying now not only I'm doing static analysis, but I also want to like have like in memory running components, and I feel like they're not necessarily at odds, but you have to be so very specific about like isolating them. You have to be able to
You
boot
wouldn't
up
wanna run that
quickly a single component with no other context. Like look at the invocation, look up the in component with like your information from the
Yeah.
file, load the entire environment that you're in,
Yeah.
and then give me like evaluate that. I guess you just evaluate
Right.
it,
Yes.
and then you'd have like an object.
An
You
instance.
could do that, but I feel like that's like you're not really in the same space as what transforms are in, because transforms are all static. You don't have any in-memory stuff, as far as I know.
But you could use the in-memory stuff to statically transform.
Yeah, I mean, you
output.
could call eval inside of a JS code shift function. I mean, it's running JavaScript.
So hold on, explain to me why do you want to eval the component?
Because it would be easier. I know how to write a function that says, I know how to write JavaScript that says, look at the style property and see what was look at, like, even let's just talk about the definition, right?
Yeah.
You have a style named blue, and then you come down and create a colors group, and you do a thing called blue, and that's illegal. So I could just
You could say,
component
hey,
dot create.
create a component and say, are you green? And
Or-
then,
or
and then if
even-
it's green, you say, you can't be green and you can't be green.
Not even that
This
complex.
Is where
Not
you get
even
your runtime assertions at build time.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right,
Because it would
yeah.
be easier to author runtime assertions or checks or all sorts of things that we do in JavaScript every day, but leverage those at build time so that you do less work at runtime. See what I'm
I
saying?
look forward to breaking the system.
You see what I'm saying, though?
Yes, I do.
If you can author runtime code that can be used to do build time transformations, it feels like you would want as much of the code in runtime as possible.
It's a runtime check and that you're running at build time.
Yeah, exactly. But it lets you author just normal JavaScript at runtime.
I mean, you could almost run that in the test suite then, right? Like you could write a test that does that says, hey, like
But again, just a simple
like
thing
like,
of
what's the type of testing where you throw a bunch of parameters at a component or something?
easy
like that?
or quick check or whatever.
Yeah, they like do a whole bunch of like
Yeah.
everything. You could do stuff like that already, but
I
like
mean,
just the
your
simple-
style guide kind of does that, doesn't it? It like renders the component with every variation.
Yeah, but it's doing that at runtime because I can just look and like iterate
Yeah.
over all the components in the container and then just check which one has like an underscore style property, something
So you
like
could
that.
do that. A
Yes.
test could do that at test time, right? Like you have a test that basically
Has access to the container.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the question is like, can I just do that
well, you
in
could,
a build time transform?
you could run JS Code Shift. JS Code Shift's going to run the transforms against every file that you give it. And then you glob a file, and then you would just say you'd be targeted to start with,
Yep.
like a single file,
Yep.
and then say I'm going to load the entire Ember application in Node,
Right.
and then which you can do.
I
And
see,
then
but
you're gonna try to get information from it.
Yeah.
You're gonna reflect
Yeah.
on things. You could do that. I think it would be very slow. I think it'd be a little like brittle, maybe. I'm not sure actually. It's interesting. It's a cool idea.
Because like if you,
I mean, you have a JavaScript.
no, you
runtime.
can decide the API. Like, what does it mean to be a style component? It means that a component that has underscore style equals true, something like that. Super simple, right? And now it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not looking at I'm not regexing over my file.
You'd have to. You also couldn't do a transform at the same time, though. You could only use that for analyzing it. Well, because if you modify it before you get to the interact.
No, you would load the file.
You load it, and now I removed a node, and I put a new node in saying like I changed the signature, like I'm doing a transform because that's what I'm doing.
Right.
If I do a transform, now the AST that you're looking at is not the AST that you have in memory. So you could change the thing that you have in memory. Well, you could deviate the AST that you're working with from the reality that you have loaded in memory. And you couldn't keep those up to date very easily. I mean, you could periodically to source them and then re-eval them.
I mean, you could do one pass to make a map of everything you need to know for the transform, and then do another pass to actually do the transform. Basically, I think this is going to be something that comes up more and more, because if I'm having ideas of how to use AST transforms for this kind of thing, more people are going to. And so,
well, I want more people to be thinking about it, because I think they really are like having superpower. You'd be like, I want to change the signature of this method, and previously you're like, well, I'm SOL, I can't change that.
Right.
And now you're like, oh, I can do that really, really trivially.
Feels dangerous.
Yeah.
Since you've unlocked this superpower, has this AST transform, has this changed the way you write code?
Not really. So testing changed the way I write code, and I think that those are still the right ways to do it. And you test drive, and then if you test drive, you're going to end up with an interface that you like. I think now what it does is when I see code that I don't like, I'm less likely to be like, oh, well, I guess I'll just use the code that exists. I'm more likely to be like, I could change this. I'm pretty sure I can.
Does that mean we could write ASTs to auto-import all the testing helpers that they make us explicitly import now?
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Which
I missed that. Pause test, click, visit.
You don't have to import pause test.
This pause test.
Yeah. Those are good. But you can do that on QUnit tests by running the Codemod that already exists. I think
it's for I'm writing I have
a new
test
app.
And I'm writing a new test, and
a new test, and you're like, I need wait.
Exactly.
It used to be wait used to be or visit used to be available.
Yeah, I haven't used visit yet. I'm writing my third test, and I write it. And then
I wonder if you could do that with VS Code maybe. I bet VS Code would you'd be able to type visit and then press a button and have it add an import to the top of the file.
I mean, what I think my ideal thing is that I type something like read only or computed or visit, and then without my editor even letting me know, it just inserts a link.
I don't know if we even need that. I mean, if you're writing an EmberMap and using pause test, it's coming from Ember.
Well, you could.
That's yes.
So you could write. So I wouldn't do this, but you could. I'm just thinking of Codemods right now. You could write visit foo whatever, and then run the Codemod, and it will do the Codemod. One of the things the Codemod did is it said this used to be available as global. And now it's not. So anytime you see visit and you're running this transform, it's going to add the import statement to the top of the file.
Yeah,
so
that could be cool.
Yeah,
I missed.
And you could actually have that on a trigger. So if you're using Vim or something like that, you could be like, hey, anytime this happens, I want you to watch the file and run the Codemod against it.
Yeah,
which sounds kind of awful, actually.
Yeah,
I think the Sam's point though, it's
it shouldn't be a part of the source code.
You know that visit. Anytime you see visit,
it's Rails. It's active record in Rails. You don't need to know where it's coming from.
I have a lot of problems with Rails though, in that, or Ruby actually, I should say.
With implicit lookup?
Yeah, I don't like it. I find that it's just. How many times you write a gem and you're like, where is this? Where do I put the things that need to go here? How is this wired up? Where do I put the things? I always Googled.
Maybe it shifts burden on the gem authors. I haven't written a lot of gems. I think application developers, all your models.
Even still though, you're still if you ever write a directory in a Rails project, now you're like, I have no idea how this is getting looked up. I have no idea how this is being loaded correctly. I just know that if I put it in this folder, it works, and if I put it in this folder, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I found that really, really frustrating in Rails. And honestly, other projects do that too. If you write a sufficiently complicated Sinatra app, there's glue code that's literally saying anything that goes here is a type of this thing, and anything that goes here is a type of that thing. And I really do Python did it really well, and JavaScript did it really well with the imports. You can follow the imports really easily. JavaScript and maybe even Python, I'm not sure, but they made that import star from.
You can follow the imports when they're there.
Oh man, wow, I hate that.
You can follow the imports when they're there. The problem is when they're not there.
Yeah, but I think we should just encourage everyone to always write them.
No, but if you had to import console every time you want to call console.log, no one would ever learn JavaScript.
That's true.
I mean, come on.
That's fair.
So that's the thing. It's a continuum. It's not black and white. If you had to import function from core every time you had to write function.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It would be kind of neat to have in development mode, maybe, like have the globals.
I think
there's an argument to be made for things that are.
I think there's an argument to be made for things that are provided by the framework that every Ember developer, every app is using, not to have to rewrite the same thing.
I will say it makes refactors down the road much easier. Like having import statements, because now you can write a wrapper function around visit, and you could if visit changed or you wanted to do custom logic, or like anytime you have like global stuff, it gets complicated. I also think they're doing it for svelte builds, aren't they? Isn't that part of the rationale? They want things to be smaller. I guess testing doesn't really matter, but elsewhere.
I feel like there's probably a middle ground there too, where maybe it doesn't have to be something like the autoloader. There can be a rule that says when I see visit, to basically what you're saying, add the import statement. So there's enough information there when it gets time to like shake things. Yeah. But the point is, like, does visit mean something? Is visit ever going to mean something else in two different Ember apps? And I think the answer is no. And if it is, then you deserve to have pain.
Probably not.
There is something like I'm in a shitty spot. I need to override visit.
Yeah, I think you should be able to do that. Yeah. But I think there should be a default.
Yes.
But I mean, just importing it like that much of a break in flow?
Yes.
Like I find that
awful.
To help clarify.
Have you
take a pause. You're like, visit this, do this. I write the test out. I like see. So my editor, I have it set up to where those little squiggly lines.
Yeah, we have
things that are not right. I just say, okay, well, I wrote the test that I think needs to exist, and then go up to the top of the file and add them.
Where do you import visit from?
At Ember test helps.
How did you know that?
Because I know it.
It's a problem.
No, but like it's also
pair with a beginner who's trying to write a test.
Right, but like your editor can tell you, they can hint for things like that. It can be like, hey, you imported this, it doesn't exist, and then
so
you
if
type
your editor
in
knows where it is and already knows your intention.
We already talked about this. You could write a trigger in VS Code.
I don't want to write that.
When you type visit, it just you press a button and it just automatically runs.
I don't think that should be anyone's responsibility about Embers. No, but honestly,
you're talking about Java. This is not an Ember thing. This is a JavaScript thing. You're saying like
you
don't want to. You want
abstractions over JavaScript.
But we don't like globals. Globals are bad.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. I think there's a middle ground.
Okay.
I think.
Maybe in testing. I think elsewhere.
I was pairing with someone, and the pause test stuff, and you have to import that. Okay, and like even just going to the top of the file, it's like there is so much going on there. It's just honestly just pair with a beginner on something that has a lot of boilerplate, and it is brutal. Absolutely brutal.
But I mean, that's kind of JavaScript. I mean, that's JavaScript is like it is advocating we use import statements. So
no, but hold on. But when I'm in an Ember component, I get to define did insert element. That's an API that Ember provides me to make development easier. So I don't have to know where it comes from or how it works or how it's implemented. I get to use it. I'm calling it. It's an API that Ember provides to me to make my development experience easier. It's an abstraction.
Okay. Well, you could easily write an add-on that imports all the helpers and then makes them and then attaches it with setup hooks and attaches the hooks object. And
that would be. I would like that.
That would be a pretty. That would be the middle ground. I think you'd add the add-on.
I would be happy with that.
And then you do this dot whatever you want.
I think this works. I think this works today.
We should do that.
I think you can do this dot.
This dot visit?
Yeah, I think you can do this dot anything.
I'm pretty sure you can do resume test as a global too.
There's another example. I'm writing tests and I want to focus one and I'm right here and you have to import only. You have to go up to the top of your file, import only next to test. I do that sometimes to focus a test suite.
But you could filter, can you not?
Yeah, you can, but I don't want. I'm right there in the code. Like in Rails, you can do focus true. Like you're typing the test and you just change the test and you want to run this one.
Yeah, but you could write I think now we're a little splitting hairs in our individual development workflows, right? What I do is I always start my test suite with ETSF, which I have alias to ember test -serve -no launch whatever, all of my things -filter equals whatever I put, and then I put my name. In this instance, I put like my username for my system, which is usually Jonathan JA. Any test I want to focus, I just type Jonathan JA in the test description, and it filters it. And I can do multiples. It's additive.
Oh, interesting. So
and then it just filters it.
He uses only by putting it in the string, like
Yes.
test string. And
Yes.
Are
So
you
I
hearing
know-
yourself? You're gonna have to listen back to the podcast to hear what you just said. If you think that that's a solution.
Well,
I'm totally.
So-
no, what I do now. No, what,
So,
you wanna
in,
know what
so
I do?
in Ruby, I do have some fond memories of
Focus true.
I never used Focus. I used Turbo. So RSpec used RSpec. You were able to pass a line number to a file. So you could map your Vim editor. I had Vim sending commands to tmux panes, and I would do leader T, and it would just say run RSpec with this file name : this line number at the
And
T.
that's like
and
where
then,
your cursor was.
yeah, and it focuses the test where I was at. And then there was another one, leader cap T would do the last one I just did, and that was like usually what I wanted.
Yeah. Next time you need to focus a test in Ember, let me tell you what you're gonna do.
Okay.
Go to where it says test, where you've imported it, change it, and do capital Q, capital U, NIT dot only. So you're using the global Q unit, and that's all you do, and you will love it because you didn't have to go anywhere, and it's basically focused.
With
You don't
ETSF,
have to
I don't-
restart the test server either.
With
You-
ETSF, I didn't have to do that either.
You won't have to restart the test server if you add only as an import to the top of the file.
No, I'm saying if you run it with a filter.
Oh,
if you,
yeah, the
if you run it,
filter,
if you run it
yes,
with the
yes.
filter, it's passing the filter string as a query parameter directly to the Q unit
Right.
test runner. And then
But the Q unit only thing
just-
does
then you just
everything
type your
want.
string.
You just
Right.
type Q unit only, and then it restarts
but you
it.
could just type a string. You could also just go to the
but
browser and
that's a
type a
hack.
filter.
Yeah, but that's annoying. That's an extra step, though. That like you're in. Flow.
I mean, I just happen to have some things that I do like as
Yeah.
things that you learn it, and there are some pains. Like I remember when I was first starting to work with the Ember Test Suite, I really did want focus. This test is the one I care about, or like run the last test that I just ran. That's the only thing I want. But
Right.
I don't know. I mean, filter works most of the time.
Right.
Also, I'm working in Mocha, and Mocha has a dot only that just works.
Yeah,
Like
so
the way you
that's
want.
what-
You don't
yeah.
you don't have to do anything. You just say dot only. and
Case
it
in
just does the
point,
thing.
right
Yeah.
there.
But I don't like using
dot only is like a modifier.
yeah, so you
Yes.
do it dot only
That's awesome.
or describe dot only.
Yeah.
And that just works.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyways,
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated. So we're arguing like
I think
ergonomics,
it's super important though.
Testing
I think this stuff is super important. It's not just testing it. It's what is Ember's responsibility in abstracting away things that are more on the boilerplate level. Of course, there's arguments on both sides here. There's an argument about people needing to learn JavaScript and all this stuff. But again, why don't we have to import console? You know, there's good arguments on both sides. I feel like the new testing stuff went a little bit too far away from Ember's kind of core values in terms of it trying to make it easy for new people, especially, to just get started with an Ember app. And now there's way more to learn for testing than there ever was before. So it feels like, yes, absolutely.
so like as far as like
even
imports, that's the thing.
await and async is another new thing to learn with no
yeah,
and
but
then.
I mean and thens were just as magical. Actually, maybe even more so.
Yeah.
Because
They
if you're an experienced JavaScript developer and you see an and then, you're like, how is this working? Because and thens were magic, and they literally like had a global promise that they were attaching any and thens to, and it's like that shouldn't work. That's not how JavaScript works. So I think async await is much more in line with that. But
I agree on the async await. The
Yeah.
problem with and then is you do visit console.log, click console.log. and people can't tell you what order things are going to run in.
okay.
So I think await solves that problem.
Yeah.
I think await is a big improvement. I agree with you that the testing stuff is too.
It's different. I really like it a lot better, like just a ton better. So like I'm not trying to be like contrarian.
I think you should
so like
pair
I'm with you,
with
like,
someone new. to
Yeah,
Ember.
well, so like I do pair with
It's
people.
just boilerplate. It's just
frequently.
every step of boilerplate. Every single little thing
But
is a huge step.
So your boilerplate, that's fair, but you're violating other like non-Ember developers' expectations less now. Now it's like I see async, I see await, I see visit, and it has a wait in front of it. That means visit returns a promise, and it's going to wait for it. Like you're thinking about these things very much like if you read this, somebody who is very familiar with writing QUnit can probably jump into an Ember code base now. Start looking at it at least. see it, dissect it. Whereas before, you did have to be like, well, where does visit come from? And it's global. So now the person who comes out.
I don't see how you solve that, because if I look where does visit come from, and now I see import visit at Ember test helpers, like I'm not going to go open that package now and read.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
you know what I'm
fair.
saying?
Yeah, that's fair.
You have, as Ember developers have to learn what visit does.
Yeah.
That's part of learning Ember.
Yeah,
but once you do, then what is the,
It's just so much more like QUnit. It's so much more like Mocha. It's just like you're not writing Ember's variant or splash of testing. You're writing
But I love
the
Ember's
JavaScript
variant of testing. That's
well, you can make it do that. You can make it do that.
I think there's a middle ground here where it's like we were too global before.
Yeah.
It was like module for acceptance.
And I get how those
and
cause
Yeah.
pain
we
for people.
swung too far.
Yeah.
We swung.
There's middle ground.
Well, no, but I really got to tell you, like setting up the model stuff. Like when you do like test for, or is it test for model or?
Yeah, module 4.
Module 4 model. When it looks up that model, the lookup paths for that are like completely they are not. You cannot look them up. Like having to do this.owner.lookup and like this.owner is defined because that is the way that tests work. And now you're working with our dependency injection system rather than this magical method that just does all the things. That was bad. Like I think it was pretty much objectively bad because there's a million different ways you can do it. It wasn't just like the common way, like when you did a blueprint, it would show you like this : that. But like if you look at the going back to Codemods here, if you look at the Codemod for QUnit, there's like 6 different variants of module 4 model, and like it will look up different things based off of like if you just give it like a post or something like that, it will try to find like things that are like it's like a post. I'll look for a post but it doesn't require you to be super specific. So like even refactoring that was like kind of crazy because you're like, well, I actually have to know the way that the internals of module 4 model looks at. It's also hard to say. Can we agree on that?
Definitely.
So okay. So I need to back up here. I feel like I've been really like. I'm not trying to conflict here.
No.
I think that there are trade-offs for sure, but I think that the move, especially the unification around the setup stuff and the simplification of that. So if you go and look at setup application tests or setup rendering tests, it is legible. It is not magical. It's not doing anything funny. And the access of the DI, I think those are, in my mind, those are really good wins. I think maybe there is a case to be made for making this context have the helpers.
That's what I care about. I mean, I don't know much about the implementation and the module 4 model stuff.
I only know from the Codemod. Looking at the Codemod, I just remember like going to it and like, why is this so complicated? And it's like it has different lookup paths.
Yeah. So again, just from the perspective, we don't import the action helper in templates. And if someone said we now need to import the action helper in every Ember template so we know where it comes from, I think I would argue against that strongly, because the action helper is provided by Ember. It's part of what it means to be developing an Ember app, and it's clear where it's coming from. There's no question about where it's coming from, and it saves us all from having to do that.
Yeah.
So that's a good
I mean,
thing.
hooks are good. The inversion of control. Basically,
exactly.
I get a component, and now you are giving me a thing that I can give you information.
And for me, pause test and visit fall into that category. Basically,
totally.
that's our argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a case to be made for the helpers for sure. I do think interacting directly with the DI system is very nice. Like stubbing services, I always had to look up.
Totally.
I always had to use like skid, container skid.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I think there are a lot of wins provided by the change, but you're right. Maybe
I think there's a lot of implementation stuff that happened that made a lot of people's lives a lot easier, and I have no problems with that at all. For me, it's just literally those like when I'm in the flow of testing. And
don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I thought you were making a more broad argument about like we should have been the old way. Is like the old way was kind of like messy.
Yeah, I get that. No. I think
we're both on.
I think we're on
the new way for sure.
Yeah.
Right, it's the ergonomics of the very highest level APIs.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That was fun.
Yeah, no, I
you need one of those every couple months.
It's totally just a conversation. I feel like I don't know. Like this is a conversation that I've had. I mean, I know we're like recording, but like this is just a conversation. Like I like to have this.
Totally.
Back and forth. So it's good.
What? Just really quick. What do you have anything coming up next that you're working on? Like you did the rehydration stuff. You did the QUnit Codemod stuff. What are you interested in right now? What do you think about you're going to work on next?
Yeah. So The current thing that I want to do is I'm using a library in my client code base called Ember Data Model Fragments, and I am probably going to write a code mod to move away from it. So that's probably my next thing. I like it a lot. It's actually a fantastic thing, but Ember Data is a little bit of a moving target, and I think that maybe we'll come back to it soon. It's an excellent project, and the people working on it are like doing fantastic work. But it's just trying to get on the latest and greatest. I'm trying to keep my client project on the stable release, every stable release, and that's been a source of some pain.
Right.
So I have actually been looking into trying to fix the library itself, which would be really nice, but that'll be the thing I would work on.
Nice.
And there's some other things I have in mind. There's some like performance tuning that I'd like to see. Honestly, just figuring out some of this stuff. I was working on Ember macro benchmarks for a while to figure out performance tuning and stuff, and I kind of fell off the wagon on that. Like I just kind of like most of the things that I was benchmarking. So it turns out Ember macro benchmark is actually like really just the glue code for Chrome tracing and har remix, which are two.
I'm not familiar with macro benchmark.
So basically, do you know what a har file is?
Yeah.
So you create a har file, and then har remix serves the har file back when you request it, so like a backend, and then Chrome tracing will use the Chrome's tracing like API, and you add performance marks in your code, and it will like tell you when you hit certain notable phases in your Ember app's boot process. So like vendor has finished loading here.
Oh, cool.
Our application is done booting here. Our last route has transferred here, and then it will give you all that information. And the Ember macro benchmark, the cool part about it is that Chris Selden wrote some really cool graphing tools for that. So you get some nice like sciencey in R, like way super cool computer sciencey, like, some nerd stuff. Let's push my glasses up real fast. It's really cool.
Is a reason for the har file, so you remove like the latency
Yes.
and the unknowns of the network.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah. So they used it extensively in the transition from Glimmer 1 to Glimmer 2, or HTML bars to Glimmer 2, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that was the version they used it, but they actually printed some of the graphs that they did into the blog post. But I don't remember if it was 211 maybe, 210 maybe, I think was when they switched over the rendering engine. But all that stuff is just like, you can use it, and I actually had it running on my current client. I've been working on my current client project for like a year. So I've done a lot of these things with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw these like really cool shifts when Ember was using it, and we were using that to measure performance. But like the individual things that I was doing, it was too sensitive. Like we never saw a big sway from like the application development. Like mostly it was framework changes that were useful to do. So a colleague of mine, Robert Webb, has been doing some things with like automated runs of Lighthouse and just logging those so that we can track performance over time per build.
That's awesome.
And that's pretty cool. I think he just landed that. And all it does, it's really cool. It like runs Lighthouse, and then it like logs it to an Excel spreadsheet, and he made a little graph so we can just see like, we got a little trend line.
Oh, cool.
So like after a couple months, we'll have like, we really started tanking here or going up here, or like we can maybe even cross-reference it to like Ember versions. That would be kind of neat, or different library versions. Like I said, I'm trying to keep us like on the latest and greatest, but that's always kind of like a tricky thing. Like I don't know about you, but like keeping packages up to date has always been really difficult. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of like 6 months behind.
So right now on EmberWeekend, I'm a big fan of. I haven't touched it in like a year, and it still works. So I don't know. I think it is actually on FastBoot. We did it for meta tags, so I think you guys probably did it for the same reason.
Thing.
Well, we were just talking about Ember Data and some other stuff with releases, and one of the things that we do love the stability, and our upgrades don't take us that long when we do them, because we wait until the projects are more stable, just because they do get more stable. However,
there's like good Codemods,
yeah,
EmberCLI update.
Yeah,
EmberCLI update is awesome.
Yeah,
it runs the Codemods. Do they automatically run now, or do you have to flag them?
I think you flag them, but it's like with Codemods or something, and it's like, okay, my work is done.
At the same time, though, because we don't do things early, we don't give any feedback to the projects. And one of the requests has been to figure out how to get more people trying earlier versions to report bugs sooner, so that things are more stable, more faster. And so one thing there would be like if we wanted to make it so we could offer our app to like try to run it against. Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. Like I know when my add-ons are going to break with future apps because Ember Try tells me. So I think we could run Ember Try
against our apps
with our app, and we could just say, listen, if Canary or Beta fail,
just like
we don't
look at
care.
it, write an issue,
let them know. Exactly.
Have a way to ship this.
That's great. Yeah, that would be really neat. Yeah, I actually thought about using Ember Try, but like, I feel like it's so hard for me to keep on top of personal projects like site maintenance. Like I was really into it for a while, where I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do the latest and greatest, and like. Now I'm like, I literally just don't have time.
Yeah,
like I don't have time. I wish I did, but I just don't have time to keep on the latest and greatest. I think we're on like we're still on a 2X variant of Ember, like late 2s.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, we are too. We're 2.18. And
but like
our upgrades.
Client projects are on 3, and I've been pretty pleased. The stable versions have been really stable. There was like a couple of things that kind of violated my expectation around like some strange glimmer bugs, but most of it was pretty good. So.
Awesome. I guess we can wrap it there.
Yeah. I was about to say, do you have enough memory? I feel like we're got to be close.
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Yours off.
It's a gamble.
Go for hours. Where can folks find you?
So I am.
Codemods.
Yeah. Rondale _SC on Twitter. That's probably the best way to do it. And the name is weird. And GitHub, it's
your name's not Ron.
My name is not Ron.
Your name is.
I have no Dale anywhere. It's. I think it's from a video game from like 2006 or something like that.
Nice.
You keep those things, you know.
Are you playing Overwatch these days?
A little bit of Overwatch.
Fortnite,
yeah. I'm kind of coming back to Overwatch. I got a little obsessed with Fortnite for a little while.
Oh, really? See, I haven't gotten there yet.
I played Fortnite last night. This is something.
Oh my gosh.
This is like the first time in 6 months. I just like ran around the map for 15 minutes.
It's so nice.
And then I got shot.
I don't think that's what Ryan was saying.
Oh, I was about to say they just released a new biome. It's pretty cool looking.
I just ran around the map. I just got shot. I was like, why are people into this?
Yeah. It's like huge. It's like
it's huge.
It's like 20-something million concurrent players or something like that. Something insane.
What was the stat? It makes like 300 million a month.
Yeah.
Something like that.
They're like, and they're doing like these really interesting like crossovers. Like they did the Avengers thing where you could play as Thanos, which is pretty neat. And like Drake is like streaming with video games. Drake, the rapper, is streaming with video gamers. What is the world coming to? It's cool.
If only I could be like 13-year-old Sam in the
right?
year 2018.
Like
it
a
seems
whole
like
different thing.
Kids who are into video games have it made
seriously.
right now.
Like I thought I was like chopping in tall cotton with 10 million World of Warcraft players.
Yeah, exactly.
And like now they're like Drake is playing video games. I don't understand it.
Well, we'll have to talk more about it tonight at the meetup.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be recorded. So if you're listening to this, you should
tune in.
Yeah, or watching it, I guess.
Or
Couldn't
watching
do either. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the
thanks for having me.
podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.